Hello, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Vanessa Rosenblum, and today we're headed to Panama. We're talking to Sabrinna Masasi. She's a real estate agent and relocation specialist based in Panama City. I'm really happy to be able to share this interview with you because we cover such a wide range of topics related to moving to Panama, finding housing in Panama, and just navigating life in a new country. I'm so pleased to share this interview with you. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hey, Sabrinna, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. How's your day going?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about Panama. I've only been to Panama once, and it was just for a long weekend. So I have lots of questions, and I will be like a lot of our listeners who are just, I'm an open book, just want to learn all about what it's like to live in Panama. But before we get started, I want to hear a little bit about your origin story. Where are you from? How did you end up in Panama?
Absolutely. So I'm from Canada, the cold area, Northern Ontario to be specific. And I love Canada, but to be honest with you, I always felt like I wanted to experience something more. I didn't feel totally happy back in Canada. And, the cost of living was getting quite overwhelming and just constantly feeling like I couldn't really get ahead. So that's when we started to explore other options, because we realized, we have the freedom to choose these big decisions. So that's kind of how it all started. It was just a deep craving for more, and then just being open to exploring what options we had.
And how did you land on Panama specifically?
Panama specifically, well, my fiance grew up in this area of the world. And one of somebody that we knew still lives here, had relocated here, and he just was the one who kind of planted the seed in our heads. And I love Latin America. I've always felt a pull to Latin America and wanting to explore it more. So I was just like, let's go for it. I was totally open. It didn't really take much convincing for me. And when I first came here, back in 2022, I absolutely fell in love, and I never wanted to leave. We came back from the trip, and I just kept going on and on about how do we figure out how to live here forever. And from there, we just, that was all we could really focus on and all I could think about.
I think that's so interesting how you can travel to a place you've never been before and feel such a strong connection to that place that you just have to figure out how to make that your home. And I so connect with that.
Yes.
So let's talk about the process. So you decide you definitely want to live in Panama. Obviously, you have jobs and a whole life in Canada. And I think this is where a lot of people get stuck. They are in love with the place, but they can't take that leap. I always say like selling your shit and getting on the plane, which is easy to do when you're broke or you're in your early 20s and you don't have kids and all that. But like once life starts to happen, it becomes really complicated. So how did you work through I want to do this. Okay, we're actually doing this.
And you know what? What you said is so accurate. Not everybody is in the same situation. And so for me, it was actually easier than not. I'll be honest, because I was working in real estate back in Canada. And the whole idea that I had in my head when I first came here was I saw so much opportunity, not just for real estate, for everything. Panama really is more of a business hub, less a vacation hub. And the opportunity is insane. So for me, it was really just transitioning my business to focus on international real estate with people who also want to relocate, invest, explore their options. And I transitioned my company to do just that, to focus on international real estate. And I'm not going to say it's easy. Nothing is easy. Everything takes work and it's challenging. But I think taking small action steps, whatever your situation is, to get you closer and closer to your goal, eventually you will get there. It's going to seem very overwhelming at first, but you have to zoom out and just take it one step at a time.
Isn't that the truth? It's so crazy how you can look back and think, oh my gosh, I cannot believe how much I accomplished, because on a daily basis, it just felt so like such a micro move. It's just one foot in front of the other. What is it? Isn't it? Tony Robbins says people overestimate what they can accomplish in a year and underestimate what they can accomplish in a decade.
100%.
And that is so true. And I think as you're thinking through this process, that it just becomes so relevant. There's so many little steps. The other thing that I think is so interesting is once you've made the move and you're part of the expat community, we'll call it the international community, the immigrant community, you're surrounded by other people who are also willing to do the hard thing and make this
Mhm.
big transition. And there's this like kinship, this like ability to form friendships and relationships that are just
Mhm.
different than it versus moving to a different city in your own country.
100%. Yes, it's so true. It's so amazing connecting with people who are from all over the world. And somehow you all have this one thing in common, which was doing something really scary and putting yourself out there. And it works out, or, it might not, but it's the trying, it's the taking that first step, which is so hard to do, but so important.
Yeah. And there's that intentionality that you all chose that place. You didn't
Yes.
default into it. Your grandparents didn't move there generations
Hmm.
ago. You chose Panama, and so
Hmm.
did they. And so you
Hmm.
already have this one kind of basic thing in common, and
Hmm.
then it kind of grows from there. So let's talk about the visa process. How complicated, how long does it take to get a visa if you're from North America, let's say, or Europe?
For sure. Panama is actually one of the easiest places to get your second residency. A lot of the residencies actually qualify you for your citizenship. You can have a residency depending on the program in as little as 60 days. It's very quick to obtain. If you qualify, it's as simple as speaking with an attorney, speaking with me to help you with the
Mhm.
process and figuring out which program you qualify for. And yeah, as little as 60 days, you can get your visa. The most popular ones for North Americans and Europeans are the Friendly Nations visa, which you can get for a real estate investment of $200,000, or the Pensionado visa, which is an amazing, extremely unique program really geared towards retirees or people who have a pension. If you show that you're guaranteed $1,000 a month, you can qualify for your visa. And there's tons of benefits that also come with it, discounts on, airfare and a bunch of other perks as well. So it's very, very easy. Anywhere from, 60 to 90 days, you can have your permanent residency card.
Wow, that is really fast. And
Yeah.
can you do it on your own, or do you recommend going through a service or an attorney to help you navigate the
No,
process?
yeah, you can't. You can't do it on your own. You need to go through an attorney. So yeah, it's not complicated though. Really, it's really straightforward. But you need an attorney.
Okay. And so you mentioned that you help people with this. So tell me, you help them
Yes,
with real estate, but you also help them get their
yes,
visa. So
yes.
explain more.
Yeah, for sure. So the company that I run here in Panama, where we basically help with anything under the offshore umbrella. So that could mean investing in real estate outside of your home country. That could mean opening a bank account. That could mean, full relocation. That could mean incorporating a company. Anything that you're doing outside of your home country, basically. And we kind of help with all of that. So we're kind of like a one-stop shop, because a lot of people who are relocating, investing, they require, more services than just maybe purchasing real estate. They also want a bank account. They might also want to incorporate a company and use that to buy real estate. There's a lot of different, ways in which you can do it. So we are basically a one-stop shop, and we tailor whatever type of services our clients need.
Okay. And is there a digital nomad visa, or the ability to
Yes.
work remotely in Panama kind of
Yeah.
visa?
Yes, there is. So the digital nomad visa gives you up to 18 months here in Panama. So it's 9 months. And I believe you have to show you're making $3,000 US a month. And then you qualify for, the 9 months. And after the first 9 months, you can extend another 9 months. So it's a total of 18 months that you can be here, work here.
Okay. And so beyond that, let's say somebody owns a company in the US and they want to work remotely permanently from Panama. So after they've kind of been through that 18-month period, is there a path for a longer stay?
Yeah, so they can actually incorporate through the Friendly Nations visa. You can actually incorporate a company. It's a bit more complex than the real estate investment version of the Friendly Nations, because you do have to get a work permit to show that you're working in Panama. However, though, because your clients are outside of the country, any money that you're making, you don't have to pay any taxes on, because Panama's only territorial tax system. So any money that you make outside of Panama, you don't pay taxes. But to answer your question, yes, there is a way in which you can live here, work here remotely for longer than 18 months with
Got it. So I love that we're talking about all of this because as people are thinking, okay, I want to leave my country, I'm trying to figure out where to go. These are all the things that you have to think through, right? So
Exactly.
what are the financial requirements? How long can I stay? What visas do I qualify for? And depending on your unique situation and how you plan to make money, some countries will be open to you, other countries won't. And then, of course, just cost of living is also a consideration. So if somebody is on a pension in the United States, they're making at least $2,000 a month on their Social Security, let's say, then they would qualify in Panama. And let's just talk in realistic terms. If somebody is making $2,000 a month from their Social Security check in Panama, is that really enough to retire on and live on comfortably?
I would say so, yes. Obviously, your cost of living really depends on how you live and, of course, where you are. Panama is very easy to control your cost of living. Panama City can be very expensive. Don't get me wrong. It can be really expensive in Panama City, but there's a lot of alternatives. You don't have to go to the higher end restaurants. You can go to where the local shops are. So being mindful of where you shop is really how you're going to stretch your money here in Panama, because it's a first world type of city, Panama City. So it's convenient. There's a lot of conveniences you can spend your money on, but it's very easy to control your cost of living. So yeah, with $2,000, you can live comfortably in Panama.
So how much, let's get out of the center of Panama. Let's say you want a quieter pace of life, but you want to be close to amenities.
Yeah.
What would a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo go for?
You can find that for, $220,000, $180,000 to $220,000.
Okay. Like done, ready to move into.
Yeah, done.
Nice building with
Most
amenities.
times furnished as well.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
So I want to take a step back a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about what life is like in Panama, it's such a broad question, right? So let's see, let me ask it this way. What are some of the rhythms of life in Panama that might be different from what somebody is expecting in North America?
Definitely, and I'm sure no one's going to be surprised by this, is the pace of life. It's much slower. Things do take longer. You have to be very patient and adaptable. Things will get done, but they do take longer. Overall, the pace of life is much slower here. And it makes you appreciate the process, I guess, a little bit more. Yeah, that's the biggest one is the pace of life. I would say the community is huge here in Panama. It's very family oriented. And not that it's not in North America, but I find people want to do a lot of things on their own. And you have a lot of help here in Panama. Everyone is willing to help. The community is very warm and welcoming, and it does make settling here very, very nice too.
Yeah, I would imagine so. And what are the festivities or the sort of the annual calendar? So we're going into the Easter season right now.
Yes.
Is that a big deal here? Are there lots of big celebrations that go on for days? Or what's that like?
Yes, it is. I swear there's a holiday every 2 weeks in Panama. The whole month of November is basically a write-off. It's a holiday here in Panama. It's the Independence Month, basically. So yeah, there's everything is shut down. There's the parades. There's lots of festivities around the month of November. And then you have Carnival as well, which was just a few weeks ago or about a month ago. And that's another thing that's 3 weeks long. So the internal of the countryside, they celebrate like crazy. So it's always a great experience if you're here during those times to actually leave the city and really immerse yourself, because that's where you're going to feel the true culture. But even, Easter, I went to the mall the other day and they had this huge, massive setup for pictures. And it wasn't just, the Easter bunny in its little hut. It was a whole village for kids to run around and play. So yeah, they do celebrate a lot here.
Let's talk about food. What are some of the national dishes that you particularly like?
Food in Panama is, to be honest with you, in my experience, it's not my favorite Latin American food that I've had. It's very it's very traditional, what you would expect, rice, chicken, beans, which, who doesn't love that? That's amazing no matter where you go. But in terms of local staples, they have patacones, which is plantains. It's basically fried plantains. That is really, really big here. Anything, cooked with corn, arepas, tortillas, all that is very popular. And then there's also a staple soup, which I don't lean towards because it's like 40 degrees outside. I'm just never craving soup, but it's delicious. It's like a chicken veggie type of broth, which is a very big dish here.
What do vegetarians or people who have gluten allergies, people who are, pickier eaters, how do they fare in Panama?
I'm going to speak straight from my experience because I'm celiac, so I can't actually have gluten. And surprisingly, I have been able to find everything and more. There's, like I mentioned, there's a lot of corn that they cook with. There's a lot of rice, a lot of restaurants that have, gluten-free options. And even leaving the city, there's a lot of random restaurants you'd be surprised that have gluten-free options. Same thing with vegetarian and vegan options as well. There's lots of, they cook with a lot of beans and like garbanzo. Yeah, garbanzo and chickpeas, that type of legume as well. So yeah, there's lots of options for everybody. I've never struggled to find something to eat.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
It's not always the same. That's not always the way it works in Europe even.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to circle back to real estate. So I'd love to know, what are some of the things that surprised you or frustrated you as you started to navigate the real estate market in Panama?
Definitely the process. It's, I would say right off the bat, it's not as efficient as what we're used to in North America. So, you're shopping for a house in North America. You're going to go on realtor.com. You're going to go on the MLS that has all of the listings right in front of you for you to just, sit on the couch at 8 p.m. and look. You can't really do that here. There's not a traditional MLS system. So for me, it was really hard navigating all of that because there's not a lot of transparency, right? And a lot of the listings are from word of mouth from the community that you build here. So networking is huge here in Panama because you're not always going to find accurate information online as to what's available. So you have to I had to connect with the brokers, and I still have to connect with the brokers locally here to really know all the options available to clients in North America or anywhere.
So what would your advice be to somebody who wants to buy a property? Should they be looking online and contacting listings? Should they work with one realtor? What's the best approach?
I would definitely say work with one realtor, but it really depends on who you work with. If you're coming and you're just searching, is also understand that because of the fact that there's not a traditional MLS system, it's not as regulated. So you never really know who you're actually working with and whether they have your best interest. So that's really, really important. I'm not trying to, toot my own horn, but there's a different type of standard coming from North America that a lot of the North American agents have here in Panama because the system is just different, right? The client is a priority and their best interest is the priority. And that's an interaction that you're going to feel whether or not the person actually thinks that way or not. Yeah. So I would say, you can look online. There's a lot of listings on even Facebook Marketplace that you can just have an idea, but understand that it might not be totally accurate.
Yeah. And I just want to underscore this point. This idea that you're going to just see a listing online and contact the listing agent and ask to see the property. This is such a bad idea. You don't know if that person even has the right to list that property.
Exactly.
You don't know if they've ever listed a home before. I mean, you don't need a license in Panama, or do you? They're starting to have a licensing process.
They're starting to regulate it more, but there are people who are, they might ask a real estate agent, hey, can I advertise your listing? And obviously people aren't really going to say no to that because they want to sell the house as well. But the person who you might see the photos might not be the actual person who's listing the house. So it's just important to keep that in mind. And also too, like if you see a listing that's written in English, understand that that's targeted to people who are English speaking. So there also probably is a chance that the price might be increased. So yeah, there's a lot of things that people don't think of. And a lot of the sellers who don't work with agents here, they might list their home basically like a for sale by owner, like 30% over what it's actually worth, hoping that somebody who is in North America is going to see it, think it's a great deal and buy it, but it might not actually be worth that much.
Yes. So work with a strong agent and just let them do their job.
Exactly.
Right? Exactly. So, just work with one person. If you see something online that you're interested in, forward it to your agent.
Exactly.
And let them follow up on it for you.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you could just get taken.
Exactly. And that's the same, even in North America, I would, never tell some, I would say, work with one person, let them do their job. They are the expert. Even if it's a country or a city you're familiar with, it's a completely different ball game. That, that's why it's our job. That's what our job is.
Yeah, exactly. So can foreigners get a mortgage in Panama?
Yes, yes, they can. It's actually quite easy for Canadians and Americans to get approved for a mortgage here. The paperwork and the process is none different than what you would expect. But yeah, they can. They can.
And how much do you typically have to put down?
30% usually. 30 to 40% for foreigners. And then the rest, mortgage financed, usually, I think around right now it's around 6%.
Okay. Okay. Kind of a high barrier
It
compared
is.
to
It is.
some
Yeah,
other places, but
it
the
is.
price is a lot lower. So if you're spending 200,000 versus 500,000,
Yeah,
and you have to
it
put a little
is.
bit more down, there you go. And so interest rates at about 6% because it's tied to the
Mhm.
US dollar. The currency is the US dollar. It's
Is
tied to
the
the US
US
dollar,
dollar.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you're tied to that. Okay.
And
And
banks here, sorry, banks,
no,
I
no,
just
go
want
ahead.
to say banks here, they don't give out money as freely as we're used to in North America. You go into a bank in North America, you can get a loan probably that same day. Whereas in Panama, they don't, it's not as flexible. They don't just, give loans for, anything. Yeah,
All right. So there's a deep process, the vetting process.
exactly.
They
Yeah,
want enough collateral to know that they're going to
exactly.
get their money back. And so in Europe, you can only get a mortgage up to the time when you turn, I think it's 65 or might be
Mhm.
67. Do they have something similar there? Whereas you get
Yes.
older, the length of your mortgage is going to be
Yes.
reduced. Okay.
Yes. I think I should know this. I think it's 65 as well. I think it's
Okay.
65. It could, yeah, I think it's 65. I don't think it's 75. That's very
Okay.
different, but I think it's 65.
And if somebody has consistent income like a pension or social security, will they count that? Or is it still the cutoff is the cutoff at 65?
No, yeah, the cutoff is the cutoff.
Okay. So that's really important for people to know
Mhm.
if you're relocating and you're, on a pension, and you think you
Mhm.
want to buy, that's going to
Mhm.
impact what, what's
Exactly.
available to you. It's
Yeah.
important to
Yeah,
know.
for
And how
sure.
are buyers agents compensated? Is it traditional for the seller to pay a commission to their agent and then it just gets split? And so you
Yeah.
shouldn't be expected to pay out of pocket to your buyer's agent.
No.
Okay.
Same as North America. Yeah, the buyer does not pay the commissions.
Okay. And is it typical for agents to also help people find rental properties, or is that like a completely different market?
Yes. No, that's very, very popular here to work with somebody to help you find rentals because again, it's the same type of idea. It's very word of mouth type of transaction. You're not going to find everything on just by looking on your own. So yeah, it's totally rentals are something that people help with as well.
Perfect. I think this idea of everything not being available and transparent is kind of hard for North Americans when we're used to having all of the information. I remember when my husband and I moved to Italy, and he's from Italy. We went to the local pharmacist in this little town we were moving to, and he asked the pharmacist, "Do you know if anybody's renting a place?" And that's how we found our rental
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
pharmacist knows what's happening in town, and that's just
Right.
like word of
Exactly.
mouth, right? Everybody goes to the
Exactly.
pharmacist. And I was blown away by that. I was like, how you're going to talk to the pharmacist about rental property? Like, what are you doing? Right. And I've come after living in multiple countries to realize like, it's all about the network and all
It
about the
is. Yeah.
community. And the information is not as transparent, which also means if you're not working with an experienced agent, you really, like you said, you don't know whether you're overpaying or underpaying because you
It's
don't know
exactly.
all the
How would you know?
listings.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know. And like here in Spain, homes are sold at a certain price, and then there's the bag of cash that's also given on top
Yeah.
to avoid taxes. So it might be a registered sale, but that doesn't mean that's what it actually sold for. So you still
Hmm.
don't have all the information, even if
Hmm.
it shows up on the listing on the register, right? So, and that doesn't always happen,
Yeah.
but it happens.
It
So,
happens.
so anyways, the moral of the story is you have to find a great realtor and just work with them and let them do their job. And how long does the
Exactly.
process typically take from offer accepted to handing over the keys?
It can be anywhere from like, I mean, I would say like 4 weeks to, 3 months.
Okay. And is
Yeah.
that depending on the seller and their time frame, or does that have to do with getting the mortgage approved and funded?
It's all involved. So I always say if anybody is needing a mortgage, give yourself like 4 to 6 months to actually get the approval because it can take a long time. Like I said, it is easier for Canadians and Americans, but even still, give yourself like ample amount of time so that even say if you're buying like a pre-construction and you need to finance the 70% after, once you get delivered the keys, I always say give yourself like 6 months just to be, so it's that mixed with, the paperwork. And one big thing that's different here is, how in North America they have a third party, basically like a title company who will check to make sure there's no liens or anything outstanding on the property. That's not really exist here. It's the lawyer who does everything. So sometimes those things can take extra long because it's one person kind of doing all of the steps.
And so is there title insurance? Does that attorney swear that you have
Yes.
clear title to the property?
Yes. Like, and again, it's not as structured as we're all, used to in North America. So yeah, yes, they technically do have, the attorneys do have title insurance.
Okay. So let's switch gears just a little bit. I want to talk about the rental terms. So if somebody comes in, they want to rent a property, how many months deposit should they expect to put down? What are the terms of a lease?
There's not a ton of, so anything less than 45 days is considered a short-term rental, which most people who are considering relocating to anywhere, they'll want to rent for at least like 3 months before they decide for sure they're going to move. So there's not a ton of rentals available for the 3 to 6 month mark, which is like that perfect sweet spot for a lot of, future potential expats. So it exists, but understand that for that, you're going to pay a bit higher because the landlord doesn't want to rent it for only 6 months. They want to rent it for a year. That's where you're going to find the most amount of inventory is a 12-month lease. And the terms, even for, a 6-month lease are just it's the same as what we're used to, first month's rent. And then the deposit is the equivalent to another month's rent that you will get back at the end of the lease.
Okay. Pretty straightforward. And it's after 1 year, do you have to sign another year lease or does it go month to month or does it vary depending on?
It depends. Some landlords want to sign another like full lease with you, or it's negotiable. Everything can be sorted to, you make sure you're happy, the landlord's happy. There's nothing like super set in stone.
Okay. So it seems pretty approachable.
Yeah. And if you change your mind, if you decide you don't like that area or you don't maybe have a good relationship with the landlord, yes, you will lose your deposit, but it is quite easy to get out of the lease.
Okay. So I'm going to take a hard left because there's one more thing I want to talk about, and that's healthcare, which there's no segue here. We're just a hard left.
No, yes.
So talk to me about your experience navigating the health system, Panama.
I will say the healthcare system is one of the things that surprised me the absolute most about Panama. I could not believe how efficient it is, the quality of the healthcare, the hospitals, the equipment. I really was blown away. And the system here is similar to how it is in the States. So, you have your private and then your public, and it's kind of a out of pocket a la carte type of thing with the private. If you want to get tests done just randomly on a Tuesday, you can just go and, get the test done. So it's very, I would say easy to be proactive also about your health here in Panama because you can make the decision for yourself what tests you want to do or don't want to do. And to see a doctor, if you don't have, say, insurance and you're sick and you need to go see the doctor. If you want to go to the public clinic, it's about $5 to see a doctor. If you want to go, to the private hospital, it's about $10. So it's very affordable. It's like significantly cheaper than the States. And the quality is just as good.
I think this is also one of those things that blows people away. Even me, after all these years, navigating healthcare out of the US still blows my mind. Just how high quality it can be, how inexpensive it is.
Yeah.
It seems so unnecessary. And it's just so wild when you actually experience socialized medicine, like the bad word, socialized medicine.
Yes. Yeah.
In some of these other countries, it's amazing and easy, and you don't need approvals for everything, and you're not getting denied, and there's no max out of pocket, and there's no copay. It's just simple, and you can navigate, you can get the healthcare you need.
Yeah. And that's how it should be, like you should be able to make the decision for your own health and well-being, what you want to do, and it's crazy, especially me coming from Canada, how that's not even a thing. You're waiting 18 months to see a specialist and you God forbid you go to the doctor and tell them, I want to get this test done. They're going to say, well, why? You're fine. You don't need it. It was a complete 180 from what I was used to.
I'm so glad we got to talk about this because, of course, this is a hot topic, an important topic.
Totally. Yeah.
And it's one of those myths. There's one of these like ideas that we're fed that, we have the best system and you can't get good care in these other countries. It's just not true.
It's not true. It's just, yeah, exactly. It's just not true.
So is there anything we haven't talked about that you wish that people knew about life in Panama?
I would say Panama is it's so much more than just, a beautiful big city. Like Panama is a small country and, it's a small but mighty country. There's so much to do, so much to explore, and it's very safe here. So I always say to people coming from outside, go explore. It's safe to do so. People are great. There's so many hidden gems in Panama. So yeah, just really, really be open-minded to exploring and immerse yourself too. I hope that people know there's expats from all over the world here in Panama. You're not just going to be around people from the States or people from North America. You're going to find people from all over the place. So it's really nice to put yourself out there and connect with people. Like circling back to the beginning of the conversation that we had, being around like-minded people, those connections are ones you really can't compare.
What a wonderful note for us to end on. Thank you so much, Sabrinna. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Vanessa.
All right, I hope you found this interview helpful and informative. I'm going to include a way to contact Sabrinna in the show notes. So if you are interested in viewing property in Panama City, I highly recommend Sabrinna. She is part of my network of English-speaking real estate experts that are located all throughout the world. And remember, whether you're looking in Panama or Spain or Portugal, I likely have an experienced real estate agent in my network that I can refer you to help you navigate the process. And of course, my service is always free to you. So make sure to reach out if you are looking for a great connection to help you navigate international real estate. Until next time, don't forget, life's too short to not love where you live.